Welcome to the What is IT podcast. I'm Douglas Wood, your host. I'm excited to get today's first episode off the ground as we dig into the question, what is IT? I mean, really, you know the acronym. You may or may not understand the capability that it brings for your organization, but what is it truly doing within our world, within the people that work there? And who are the people who drive IT and move it forward from behind the scenes? I couldn't think of two better people to start this journey with than Dr. Kevin Hollister and Susan Harwood. Both bring a wealth of experience across multiple industries, spaces, and times. Dr. Kevin Hollister has worked across water technology firms and engineering firms on a global basis. He knows what it's like to manage cultures, time zone differences, and very diverse needs from his organization with demanding timelines. Susan Harwood has spent her career in retail, working in organizations such as Borders Books and Lowe's Home Improvement Stores. Susan has this uncanny ability to bring understanding of technology to executives, employees, and customers alike. Together, with the stories we have and the people we've worked with, we're able to peel back this question a little bit. And I'm excited to have the conversation and invite you to join us as we dig in deeper. You're going to hear some cringeworthy moments as we dig into some places that IT has gone that maybe they shouldn't have been. And then we'll also dig into some heroic success stories, hearing how people in IT have done some pretty amazing things to bring success home for their organizations. I think you're going to like it. This is an incredible journey that we're going to take together. I welcome you to What is IT? Welcome, Susan and Kevin. It's great to see you both today.
Good morning.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome to have you on the podcast. You know, before we get into it, I want to ask you something fun. Can each of you share one of your most cringe-worthy IT moments from your past? Something where the whole IT branding problem really hit home for you?
I don't know if this is a branding related issue, Doug, but one of the ones that has always stuck in my mind, thankfully it didn't exactly happen to me, but it affected me. And that was, I was in a senior management meeting one time where the new CFO asked in front of everybody, tell me again what ERP means. And we were getting ready to launch it was $30 or $35 million rollout of a system worldwide. And I thought, not only was I embarrassed for him, but I felt guilty because clearly I hadn't brought this guy up to speed on exactly what we were doing. And it was one of those crawl under the desk moments.
Ouch.
Hey, listeners, this is the editor here. I'll be popping in from time to time to break down some of those tricky IT terms that Doug or the guests might not get a chance to explain. So like just now, Kevin said ERP, and that's short for Enterprise Resource Planning. Think of it as the ultimate air traffic control for a business. It's keeping every department flying in formation and landing safely, so no chaos, just smooth operations. All right, with that, let's get back to the show.
Ouch.
So I have one kind of similar where the company I was working for went through kind of a soap opera level reorganization and conflict with the board and reorganization that followed. And so we were without a CEO. The CFO hadn't been on speaking terms with the CFO for quite a while. The board changed over. It was just upheaval everywhere. And the CIO left to take a different job at that same time. So we didn't have a whole layer of senior management. And we were doing, like Kevin referred to, we were in the middle of about a $30 to $40 million replacement of every system in the company. And the vendor, who had been buddies with the CEO and CIO, didn't live up to all of the customizations that they promised to put in base. And so we were stuck with having to do a bunch of this work ourselves. And I had put together a recommendation for staffing to do that pretty reasonable. I mean, I was only looking for like a couple of senior PAs and a couple of regular developers. And there was the new member, the new chairman of the board came busting down to my offices, waving this thing like I was asking for $1 bazillion and wanting to know why it was so expensive and, saying no. And I was explaining what this was market rates. And he was like, we just riffed a bunch of secretaries out of the department of so-and-so. He was a senator. I can take a checkbook right now and go and hire 5 of those people for 10% of this. Like, okay, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it takes to staff an IT project.
Wow.
Often
Yeah,
the case.
amazing stories, right? So many that we face over the years. It's crazy. All right. Well, let me ask you, Susan, if you're at a dinner party and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, what do you do?" How do you answer that question without instantly be branded as the neighborhood geek?
Well, you're going to be branded the neighborhood geek no matter what. So just embrace that part. But honestly, I would just say, I'm the CIO for whoever. And, then as long as they didn't look like, oh, God, please don't tell me more. I'd explain that by saying basically anything with a plug and a brain is my opportunity and my fault. And when that I'd really talk about, it's basically the central nervous system for the company. So think about what the central nervous system does. IT makes everything work, whether that's operations or getting products to market or networking with customers and serving them, whatever that might be. That was like the 30-second thing.
Perfect. And Kevin, might be a little harder for you, but how would you answer that same question?
Well, I'll never forget. We had to take your daughter to or take your kid to work one day, and this was many years ago. My daughter was probably about 10 at the time, and so I brought her to work, and she hung out with me throughout the day, as kids do on take your kid to work day. And at the end of the day, my wife asked my daughter, "So, did you see Dad working today?" And she said, "No, he just talked on the phone all day." And there's I used to say somewhat jokingly to people that my role was the 3 P's: people, problems, and politics. And the technology component was kind of secondary in my role, as it is for all of us when we're leading a complex team of systems and people and all of those kinds of things. But yeah, it is a little difficult to describe exactly what we do, but it's very often a people business for sure.
Very interesting, right? We talk about what is IT, but it's a people business is what
Okay.
we're really in. Why do you think people don't understand IT? What is the struggle here? Why is IT so difficult to understand and explain?
I think in a way it's gotten easier in some senses with the advent of sort of mobile technology. The iPhone came out and everybody suddenly thought they were a technology expert because they could download an app. And that did a lot to really help people understand where technology can improve their lives and make things efficient and the true technology part of things. It doesn't help them understand the complexities underneath the skin. And I think there really isn't a great way to do that aside from really trying to drag people through the details, which they just don't want to do. I mean, I don't want to learn how the details of my car works. They don't want to learn how the details of the network works. But so I think in some ways, that's where the relationship part comes in. You have to build the trust you come in with credibility. You need to live up to that credibility and then build the trust and the relationship so that they know you've got this on the technology side. But I personally think that explaining it is actually easier now than it used to be in many ways, because you've got a frame of reference for them to think about in the technology that everyone's using at home.
Interesting. Kevin, any additional thoughts?
Well, just that I love Susan's analogy of the car. People use cars every single day. We understand little to nothing about what makes them all work. If we understood the amount of software and technology, the hardware, the development of that hardware, if we understood all of that went into building a vehicle, we'd be overwhelmed with the amount of technology that's embedded in a thing that we use every single day, just like the cell phone, right? But I think that the example Susan gave is a really good one, where we don't understand it. We just expect it to work. We expect
Right.
it to start when we get in it, and we expect it to stop when we hit the brakes, and that kind of thing. And there's very little tolerance for it doesn't start, it doesn't work, it doesn't run correctly, it's got a problem. And I think that technology is very similar. But I do agree, Susan, you're exactly right about the fact that the consumerization of technology has made it somewhat easier for people to understand the complexity.
The thing I mentioned before, I use it at a cocktail party, but I also use it with people I'm working with in the company, is that central nervous system analogy. Yeah. is a pretty good one. People understand what that is, and they can really relate to the idea that first of all, it's extremely complex. Secondly, a lot of the complexity is hidden. And third, that you really don't do anything as a body without your central nervous system. So
really good analogies there, Susan. I love those. You're touching on something there, though, like working with so many people and seeing behind the scenes all the time and having the years of experience that you both have. What's something that people take for granted when they think about what IT does, something they do every day and use every day that they probably don't even know the complexity behind it?
pick a topic. I think security is a big one. I think people are aware of the risks around security, but I don't think anybody has any concept of the level of threat and the constant barrage of new threats that are on the way, and how creative those get, and what all happens, like how many things IT is fending off every day. Would probably surprise a lot of people. That doesn't serve you to constantly talk about that sort of thing, but every once in a while, serving up those stats, especially if a company is not appreciating the back end of things, that's always been an enlightening sort of conversation to have.
Kevin, anything to add from your side?
No, not really, Doug. I mean, I just think that Susan's exactly right, that there are so many aspects of the technology that we interact with every single day. It even goes back to the automobile analogy that we were using a minute ago, where we don't understand, and therefore, I don't want to be too critical here, but we also don't appreciate what it does take for things to operate smoothly and effectively and efficiently. So yeah, I think Susan's exactly right there.
And to your point, Kevin, the cars 20, 30, 40 years ago were so much simpler than they are today. And the same is true for IT. We need to do a better job of helping people understand the layers that need to come into play in every single thing we do. And I've never found a great way to do that without having the CEO's eyes roll back in their head. But finding a way to really have them appreciate that when it's necessary. I wouldn't do it just as a matter of course, but sometimes you really need them to get it. And, starting with a network layer, and then you start breaking down sort of application layers. And that's not just one layer. That's now 15 different layers with interfaces to 7 different companies that are not controlled by me.
So what's something that you wish people would do outside of IT to learn more about IT? Like what is something that they can do or pick up or easily learn? Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that just having if it's nothing more than an intellectual curiosity for some of the things that are current topics, trends, challenges in the technology world, I think that that's probably something that's very beneficial. And I also think it can be intellectually stimulating as well. As you read about how companies are doing unique things with technology, I think I came from a fairly mundane business in terms of wholesale distribution. We weren't doing anything cutting edge at all. But at the same time, there were so many opportunities for us to apply technology in meaningful ways to our business. Yet it was difficult to get people at a leadership level and even at a user level to get excited about the potential opportunities for technology applications. And so therefore, to come back to your specific question, Doug, I think that just familiarizing ourselves as consumers of technology in a business environment, I think familiarizing ourselves with what other companies are doing in unique and exciting ways, and then digging into that, even at a superficial level, I think can be really beneficial to us personally, but also to our business, because it creates opportunities for us to do great things with technology in a business that might otherwise be a bit a bit mundane, like the example I gave.
Makes sense. Makes sense. How about you, Susan?
I totally endorse Kevin's recommendation there. I think asking whoever they partner with from IT, whether that's their application, their sort of portfolio leader, or if it's a business analyst or their CIO, sitting down and saying, tell me the two or three things that are really hard in your world that would surprise me. And, tell me the two or three things that you really wish I understood. That question would generate a conversation that I think would feed into that intellectual curiosity that Kevin is talking about, because just being willing to ask that question would mean a lot to their IT partner.
Sure.
In many cases, it feels like technology is assumed to be a bunch of people who go back behind the wall and they go do stuff. And, we ask for something and they go off and do their thing. And sometimes they bug us and we have to do testing. And, then they'll come back with a solution and it may or may not be what we asked for. And there's that disconnect that I think that curiosity would help to cover.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting insight, right? Because the whole job of IT is to ask questions and learn and pull all that stuff out. But yet, the other side hasn't happened as much in the history of IT. Like you mentioned, currently, as it's consumerized more people are curious, more people are asking. But that kind of leads us to the whole premise of the podcast, right? This what is IT, sharing more insights, kind of piquing the curiosity of what people might want to know about IT and our branding problem, right? Because people just they don't want to ask, they don't want to buy, they don't want to talk to it as much. And one of the best ways to share some of the insights here is through stories. So I'd love to ask both of you to talk about an IT hero moment from your past. Is there anything that you saw where could be in your company and the community, something that someone did, that you did, a team did that really had a major impact on the world around them, something that really shows IT at its best? Any stories you want to share?
Doug, one that comes to mind for me, and I'm sure that all three of us have seen this firsthand, probably many, many times, and could give numerous examples. But the going back to kind of the people element of all of this, um, I remember a particular instance where we had manufacturing locations around the world in our company, and we had a telecommunications outage that impacted all of our locations and their ability to process orders and manufacture product, that sort of thing. And thankfully, it wasn't anything that we caused, but one of the providers that we used had an outage. So a lot of systems down, a lot of people very angry and upset in our businesses about their inability to do the things that they're paid to do. And what I saw, and this is the example that I was about to mention that we've all seen probably multiple times, is I saw a group of people working tirelessly. I think it ended up being 38 or 40 hours consecutively without going home and without taking a break to get things back into working order, working with that telecom provider. And that level of devotion, I think, to me was just, it was amazing. I mean, and that's the kind of thing, we've said this a couple of times in our discussion today, but there's all this behind the scenes stuff that's happening. And to see people with that level of commitment where they're foregoing time with their families and time to, go home and rest and relax in order to solve a huge problem, that level of devotion was always something that amazed me. I was thankful that they weren't relying on me to solve the problem, but it was just that level of commitment, I think, is that IT superhero mentality that so many people in this trade have.
Yeah, the long hours, the late
Oh,
nights, and you never know when it's coming, right? Technology
that's right.
breaks. That's one
That's
thing you can
exactly
always
right.
count on out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing. Susan, you've done a lot in the retail side. I'm sure that you've seen some major issues or problems or things that have cropped up. Any moments that you want to share from your background?
Yeah, there's one. So I mean, one that springs to mind. There's millions, but one that comes to mind is when I was relatively new at a company, and I guess I'd been there 2 or 3 months, and we were at a conference where all the field like leaders came in. So this was for all of the remote. There was about 1,000 units that were across the country operating, and we had all these people in there, and they were the CEO and the CFO and the COO were talking at the bar. We were waiting for the bartender to bring our glass of wine, and I just heard them talking about the challenge of trying to stay on top of this reporting and these analytics that they were working on. And so I asked the CFO the question, what is this? Like, what's so hard about that? And it turns out they had a team of people who were printing binders this thick, physical binders this thick, every month, and sending those printouts. So everybody like had a printer in their home office, and all those leaders would print out all those pages and stick them in a binder, and they'd carry that around in their car as they were going to visit each one of the stores. And, by the first of the month is new data. By the end of the month, not so good anymore. So, and it was unable to give them any kind of dynamic access. And you can imagine what a pain it was to haul around. So anyway, I said, I'm pretty sure we can solve that problem pretty quickly with the application of some BI. And if we could give them a tool like an iPad, this is not a difficult problem technologically to solve.
All right, let's rewind that one for just a second. You probably heard Susan mention BI, which stands for Business Intelligence. It's all about turning a company's raw data into simple, useful insights that help make smarter decisions for the business. So now that we're all feeling a little bit more intelligent, let's get back to the show.
And so he got excited. The COO got excited. They went say, okay, I'll give you this much money. You can go buy these. We'll give them the iPad as their gift for the season. But you have to have it ready in like 4 weeks when we all meet. So I had a great team who picked up that challenge and really wanted to be the heroes, really wanted to make this work, wanted to impress and thrill everybody, and then equip them going into the holidays. And we got it done, man. It was quite the feat, and it changed how about 15,000 people experienced their workday.
Wow. Amazing. So keeping things running, responding to emergencies, finding opportunities to make life better, all things that are part of the IT brand, right? The IT story that often people only note when it breaks and you fix it. And the successes often are just an ordinary part of the day, right? Like, of course we should have that and things should move forward. Any thoughts on like that time when success was really seen somewhere in your past or your history where somebody was so excited for a technology that you brought that it was celebrated?
Susan mentioned a situation there early in her career. Early in my career, I had a great boss who was very interested in doing creative things. And so he sent me out with salespeople throughout the company just to travel with them and understand how they sell and the customers that we were selling to, that sort of thing. And I'll never forget, that was one of the best periods of my career development to really understand how we could take technology and apply it, because I got this great opportunity to talk to customers about, when you buy from us, why is it problematic, or why don't you buy from us, or what would it take to get you to buy more from us, and giving them insight into, hey, you know what? I think we could take our catalog of products and push it into your estimating system in this case, it was a construction industry client base. We might be able to take our list of products and push it into your estimating system so that you're using real data with real pricing that's specific to you when you're doing job estimates. And back to what Susan said, the technology part of that wasn't super difficult. There's a lot of work involved, but it wasn't super complex. But the results were amazing. Customers had never seen that kind of thing before, right? And so those opportunities for us as technology professionals to impact the business when the business is interested in partnering with us, I just think there's no end to how great that can be.
That's
There's
awesome.
another example comes to mind. I was working for a Fortune 50 company, and the store systems had been groundbreaking in their day, but they'd been around for a little while, and the back end of them had been being updated, but the front end was still largely the same, because that's the disruption part, right? You change the way people work day to day, and that slows folks down. But we were finding that customers were coming in better armed with information, current information, to Kevin's point earlier. on their cell phones than the store folks had in their system. And it took them longer to access it, even if they did have it. So, doing a pilot test and then a major rollout for that handheld technology and just doing this, and I say simple, it wasn't simple, but it wasn't dangerously complex. Like we didn't have to figure out how to do it, but we just had to get it all done. So getting that work done, though, to put that information in the hands of, a handful of people in every store made an enormous difference. And that got, I think, a standing ovation at the next store leadership meeting.
Wow. That's awesome. Standing ovation. Can't beat that.
No, no.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about you both mentioned stories from your past when you were younger, seeing things. What would you advise your younger selves at this point, the IT professional in their journey at this point? Where should they focus?
For me, Doug, it would be very similar to what I described a minute ago. I was very fortunate in that I had a boss at the time who not only allowed, but asked me to do this kind of thing. But finding opportunities to get involved in areas other than I'm an application developer and that's what I do, so I'm going to write code. But finding opportunities to learn more about the business, to interact with people in the business, to interact with our actual customers. I just think that is one of the most enriching, most powerful opportunities for anybody in their career. And it really doesn't matter whether you're early in your career or late in your career. I think the value is there regardless. But I would just encourage people who are starting out in their careers to really actively try to pursue opportunities to get engaged with customers and people in unique roles in the company and learn as much as they can about how technology applies and what our customers buy from us, why they buy from us, how our salespeople sell. I just think that's invaluable.
Great. Yeah. Be
Totally agree.
curious, stay hungry, right? How about you,
Right.
Susan?
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say too, was find opportunities to embed yourself with business, to really understand. Let them get to know you, but most importantly, you need to get to know them and their business and understand why they do what they do. What are the pain points in that department's operation? There is no one else in a company that is more familiar at a detail level with how the organization operates than the CIO, with the possible exception of the CEO, but most of them don't get down in the weeds like we do. And it's both an exciting and thrilling and humbling experience to really dive in and to learn that. My passion started off in the technology side. I was a developer. I love developing. But after 5 or 6 or 10 years, you've kind of been there, done that. You've written all the different types of things. And really what jazzed me was the transformation of business, of applying the technology knowledge to a business problem or to envisioning a business opportunity, because I happen to have pieces A, B, C, D, E that nobody else would have. And I could put those things together and say, hey, look, we've got an end-to-end opportunity here that I think I'm in a unique position to see. And bringing that forward and then seeing the kind of transformation that could bring, that's where the satisfaction comes. And you can start that as early in your career as they'll let you do.
Awesome. Awesome. How about flip the script now as the learned CIOs who have managed large teams across multiple borders? What do you recommend to the non-technology professional? So the people who are building their careers in this digitally enabled era, where should they be focused? What should they do to be better connected to technology and leveraging technology in their IT teams?
Questions SOP. The standard operating practice oftentimes has a bunch of inefficiency baked into it because that's the way we've always done it. And, it's easy when you come in to simply, you start a new job, someone tells you, hey, here's our operating practices, which, by the way, IT doesn't have because we're inventing something pretty much every time we do anything. But, most other departments have a rule book, a playbook. And, you get told this is how we do it. And it's easy to not question that. But if you've been there for long enough to understand, okay, here's what we're doing, you've got a basis for having asked your questions, and you can start to ask why. Sometimes those why questions from new eyes are what generate an opportunity or a visibility of an opportunity And that's a really important thing to do. And they can be quite a hero for finding that opportunity and bringing it up.
I love it. Love it. Yeah, looking for opportunities to improve and drive things and then bring in technology where it's applicable, right? Great. Awesome. How about you, Kevin?
I think that I love that idea. I think that for our non-technology listeners, watchers today, I think that something to consider is asking those kinds of questions, if not posed correctly, can come across as criticism rather than a real earnest desire to make things better. And so I think that one of the things that I would encourage folks to do would be to partner with the technology team, create those, build those relationships, and use that as a way to do exactly what Susan just described, which is identify opportunities to make things better. And that way, when you've got a relationship, I used to tell our team all the time that everything that we do has to be based on a strong relationship with our business partners. Otherwise, it becomes an us versus them type of difficult relationship. And so I think that building those relationships and welcoming the technology folks into your world, whether you're in HR or finance or manufacturing, it really doesn't matter. But welcoming them in and showing them, especially showing them business problems that you're facing and seeing if they've got any ideas for how to make that process better or fix that particularly troubling step in your manufacturing execution. I just think there's a huge opportunity there, largely untapped in many organizations.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, not everyone recognizes that a lot of technology professionals have a service mindset, right? They
Right.
want to help, they want to get engaged.
Yeah.
That's part of the whole
So true.
education and training of being an IT professional. So
So true.
great points. Great points. Well, we're closing in on the end of the time we have together. And just like in the real world, people can only listen to IT carry on for about 30 minutes before they tune out. So let's go into a quick speed round here. A couple of questions that I'm going to give you just quick answers here. Susan, tell me the last time you Googled something techie that you probably should have known already before you Googled it.
Oh God, I'm sure I did it in the past week, but I can't remember right now what I did. It was some term that I ran across that I wasn't familiar with. It was a networking term.
So just looking stuff up. Kevin, how about take a different spin on it? Something you asked AI that you're like, oh man, I should have known that already.
Mine's a very mundane example, but it was literally just yesterday. We're doing a commercial office remodel project right now, and we got to tell the electricians what kind of cabling we want them to run. And I didn't know whether Cat6 cabling was backward compatible with Category 5 cabling, and that's the kind of thing I sure should know. But I had to, I asked Google Gemini yesterday, and thankfully it is backward compatible. But I thought I was embarrassed. I was glad nobody was listening because I felt really stupid for not knowing such a common and simple thing. But it's becoming, to your point, Doug, it's becoming more and more necessary in our world to be able to quickly access information and get answers to those kinds of questions. So.
Helps us old timers the most, right?
Yeah.
Get everything, all the syntax and stuff you forget. It's right there with the answers
Yeah.
to remind you, and you're like, oh yeah. How about a gadget, something from your past that you love that you don't have anymore and wish you still did? A gadget you miss?
Mine was my first laptop, Doug. I had a bleeding edge. It was probably a horrible product, but I had a bleeding edge laptop that I bought. It was made by a company called Twin Head. I don't even think they're in business any longer, but Taiwanese manufactured product. And I was literally the only person in my class at the University of Florida that had a laptop. And that was a formative period of my life when I got to use a technology that was bleeding edge. That wasn't normally the case for me.
Nothing
Yeah,
like
that was
being the
great.
cool kid with the tech toy, right?
Exactly. And that never happens to me. So
It doesn't.
I'm not
Yeah.
in the cool kid club most of the time.
Awesome. How about you, Susan?
I can't say that I miss it, but I had kind of a similar experience where my company wanted me available, and so I got one of the early cell phones, which was a big old brick of a thing, and it came in a bag. You had to carry it in your car and plug it into the well, I guess it was the
Cigarette lighter.
Yeah. So I don't really miss that, but it was a cool factor at the time. Although really anybody looking at it now would go, "There's no way that was ever cool."
Yeah.
And I had, what was the name of that earliest PDA? Does anyone remember?
The Palm
I had
Pilot?
one of those.
The Palm Pilot.
No, it was before Palm Pilot.
Oh.
It was like 1988, maybe 89.
Stone tablet and a chisel, maybe.
Kind of like, yeah. It was again. It was sort of like an iPad Mini size.
That was a
Moses
Moses
much of anything
one,
besides contacts. I think it was a contact and calendar, maybe.
Wow.
Anyway.
Whoa, what a callback to the 80s. Susan just mentioned a PDA, or a personal digital assistant. It's a handheld device that was popular before smartphones, used for organizing contacts, calendars, notes, and tasks, all in one place. Kind of like a digital planner you could carry in your pocket. And in this case, Susan's actually talking about the Scion Organizer. Go ahead, look it up.
Way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss the tactile keyboard of the BlackBerry. That's the thing that I write so many wrong text messages and stuff because my fingers can't feel it. Boy, I want that tactile keyboard back. That's for sure. Okay, last question for you before we end here. Kevin, if you didn't follow this path in IT, what would you be doing right now?
I'd be a contractor.
Contractor.
Yeah.
Out there building.
Be building things and probably homes. But yeah, I'd be building things.
Awesome.
So there are a lot of allegories there, a lot of analogies there.
Awesome. And Susan?
Well, my father would hate to hear me say this, but I would probably be a lawyer. It was the only thing he didn't want me to do. As a CFO, he spent a lot of time with lawyers and he just didn't have any patience for them.
Interesting. Good stuff. Well, thank you both for joining me today, and a really great conversation. Enjoyed talking to you both, and look forward to seeing you more in the future.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Doug.
And that's it for our very first episode of What is IT, where Susan and Kevin showed us that technology can be a lot like the central nervous system of an organization, critical to its operation, but not often thought of or seen in the same way. They also uncovered some pretty amazing hero stories that showed us how some technology leaders go above and beyond to make things work and to have things keep running for organizations in which they support. But let's be honest, IT still has a serious branding problem. Throughout our podcast, our interview, we talked about this thing called the business. Even seasoned leaders like ourselves falling victim to separating ourselves from the organizations that we actually work for and support. And it's worth asking that question a little harder. Why do we do that? Why do we keep seeing technology or IT as a separate entity from the rest of the organization that they support? I invite you to join us as we dig deeper into that as this podcast continues. We're going to have some pretty exciting episodes coming up. We're going to be talking networking with a CIO who leads a historic New York City institution and also moonlights as a builder of a Halloween happening for charity. We're going to get into that ultra buzzworthy topic of digital transformation, talking to a former Army captain turned fashion CIO who once attended a meeting as a robot, but yet still manages to keep everything cool and collected as he's doing transformation and performing change management activities for his organization. We're going to get into the ring with a Bronx Jiu-Jitsu fighter who's turned into a security leader and sheds off that hoodie-wearing hacker type persona and brings the MMA fighter mentality into the security operations center. And we're even going to talk about the ultimate IT person's dream of leaving IT and going into the business. And we're going to find out what they found on the other side. So this season's going to be pretty exciting. We got a lot of good things lined up as we continue to explore this topic and dig in deep into what is IT for every organization, for every person that's out there. And so join me as we unpack these topics and more, and welcome to What is IT?